Welcome! In this series of short videos, we will look at topics for the PowerBasic Windows Compiler. Today we will look at using the IDE for the first time. This is the first in a new series of videos, dedicated to those of you who have either inherited a PowerBasic installation or are setting one up for the very first time. Today we will look at how to configure your integrated development environment for the PowerBasic Windows Compiler. PowerBasic can either be installed on a computer by running an installation application or by just copying all the files in the PBWin10 folder to another hard disk on your computer, or another computer entirely. What we see on screen here are the contents of the PBWin10 folder. There is an uninstall application here in this folder. This is one you do not want to click on, as it will attempt to uninstall PowerBasic. Let's first of all have a look at the readme.txt file. This file contains some very useful information. If we scroll down a bit, we will see the contents of the individual directories. The bin folder, the binary folder, contains all the applications that comprise PowerBasic. The one we will be running is this pbedit.exe. This is the Integrated Development Environment application. The other applications are all run from this application. If we go back to the root folder, you will see there are a number of other folders. The binary folder, the bin folder, is the one we have just seen described in the readme.txt file. The pbforms20 folder is an add-on application to allow you to design forms for PowerBasic Windows. We'll cover that one in the next video. The samples folder contains a number of sample applications to illustrate how PowerBasic works. These are divided into a number of different categories. The Win API folder contains all the include files that you will need to interact with the Windows operating system. So to start off our use of the PowerBasic Windows Compiler, we're going to go into the bin folder. And the application we're going to run is pbedit.exe. This is your IDE, your Integrated Development Environment. If you have just copied this folder into another folder on your computer, or if you have copied it onto another computer entirely, there may be some things we'll need to do to get it to work properly. We'll cover these as we go. If we click on the Help icon, this will bring up the PowerBasic for 10 Windows Help. If this help file does not initially appear, it's probably because the initialization file, the ini file, is pointing to the wrong location. So let's have a look at that first. If we go back to the bin folder, you'll find at the top of the screen here there's a pbwin.ini. If we open that up in Notepad, you will see in here there are a number of entries pointing towards the H drive. Now at the moment we're operating on the E drive. So in order to get this to work properly, we need to change all these entries to this path. So rather than H PowerBasic, it's going to be E PowerBasic. So we'll change all of these to the E drive. This line in the ini file is used to direct PowerBasic towards the location of the help file. We also have templates, also settings, and include files. Now that these are all pointing towards the E drive, we should be okay. Further down this ini file, you'll find a section where PowerBasic keeps track of the most recently opened files. These are all pointing towards files on my H drive, where I keep my YouTube PowerBasic videos. We don't have to change these, as it will remember any new ones we open anywhere on your computer. So if we save our ini file, come out of that, and we will come back into our IDE by double-clicking on pbedit once more. Now when we click on the help, it'll be pointing towards the help on our E drive. So as you can see from this environment, there are a number of icons on the toolbar, some which are grayed out and some which are not. Before we click on any of these, we're going to have a look at the menu bar. If we look to the Windows menu and click on Options, in here we can set up options for the operation of our PowerBasic compiler. First of all, our file backups. PowerBasic will automatically keep a backup of your basic files. If you load a file, make some changes to it, and save it, it will take the original file, should there be one, and call it the name of the file .back. If you do not need this, you can quite easily turn it off by clicking on No Backup. You can also increase the maximum number of recently accessed files. In the Editor tab, we have a number of file types. The PB source code is always .bas. You include files, and the files to be used for resources, plus the project file should you wish to use them. There are a number of edit preferences you can set for your preference. There are options for setting the tab size. I normally keep mine at 2 as I find a tab size of 4 to be slightly too large. You can also set your keyword case to be upper, mixed, lowercase or no case change. I find it useful to either use upper or mixed for the keywords as it makes them jump out on screen. Next, we can look to the fonts. I use a slightly larger font so it's easier to see when people are watching videos. The colour option is to set the colours for the different parts of PowerBasic. For example, comments in green, keywords in blue, PB forms messages in light brown, and so on. So you can change these for your own preference. Or click the Load Defaults button to go back to the default settings. The Compiler tab. At the top of the screen, we have Include File Paths. If we click on the button, we'll see I have specified 2 folders. On your main.bas file, if you have specified any files to include in the compilation, you may or may not have specified a path. If you've specified a path, that's where PowerBasic will attempt to go to pick up that include file. If you have not specified a path, then it will look inside the folder where your main.bas file resides. If it cannot be found in there, it will start to look through each of these folder paths we have specified here to see if it can find that include file. If it finds it in one folder, it will not look anywhere else. If it does not find it in the first folder, it will look in the second folder. You can set the preferences by moving these folders up and down. The compiler options are for beeping on completion and giving you detailed results, and also creating a log file. We'll cover this other option, create a PBR file, in the next video. So we move on to debugger. Debugging is something we'll cover in a later video, but this allows you to step through your code one line at a time and examine the value held in variables to allow you to debug your application. The final tab is the General tab. This allows you to set some of the general preferences for PowerBasic. For example, ask before exiting the IDE, a setting to set the toolbar size. This is the toolbar at the top of the screen here. I've made it 48 by 48 so it's more visible in YouTube videos. You can also opt for having the editor output to message box. And you can also set the PowerBasic application to allow only one instance of the IDE. It's sometimes useful to have 2 instances running. And the final settings are for printer preferences. So having looked around that, how do we create an application? If we click on this icon on the toolbar, we have a number of options. We can click on any one of these options. DLL framework allows us to create a source code file that will allow us to compile a dynamic linked library. We can create a generic PB program and a number of other options. You can create your own templates and add them to the list, but we'll cover that in a later video. So let's create just a generic PB program. This displays the absolute minimum needed for an application. Our first line tells us that we want to create a compilable executable. The second line tells PowerBasic that we want all variables to be dimensioned, in other words declared, before use. This is a very useful line to have in your code. And this section here is the wrapper for the pbmain function. pbmain is the first thing that's run when your application runs. So with this skeleton on screen, we can put a single line in to create a Hello World application. And if we attempt to run the application by clicking on this icon on the toolbar, which will compile and execute the current file, it will first ask us to save the application. So let's create a test folder on our machine. And we'll call it helloworld.bas. And there is our application running on screen. We have the pop-up window telling us the compilation has been successful, and we have our application saying Hello World. As soon as we click on OK, the application will end. You can see the application running down here in the toolbar. And that's the application completed. So if we close this tab on our IDE, we can open up our application by clicking on the next icon, the folder. And we can see our application there, Hello World, is at the top of the most recently loaded files. And there is our application once more. You can, if you wish, print the current file. You can cut the selected text to the clipboard, so we could select it, cut that out completely, or you could undo. The next three icons are to do with the clipboard. We can select the text to the clipboard. We can also copy the selected text to the clipboard, or we could paste text in from the clipboard. The spyglass allows you to find text. So we could look for hello. And it highlights that. This, of course, is a very small program, and it's easy to see where what we're searching for actually sits. You could also replace text. So we could select world. We could go in and we're going to change world to universe. And replace. And as though we found one instance of that, your next icon is to compile the current file. This would allow the application to be compiled. It would not run the application, but it would attempt to compile it. If there's something in your application that is incorrect syntactically and you attempt to compile, it will stop on the line that has not compiled. We have an undefined type, and it's failed on line 4, and it highlights the line that's causing the problem. As you can see, when the line is correct, it's shown in blue. This is because this is a reserved word. We've already looked at the compile and execute icon. The next one over is for debug. We'll handle debug in a later video. The next icon is to go to a particular line in the file. So if we want to go to line 6, it would drop us straight down to line 6. You can see at the bottom right hand corner of the application the line number you're actually on and the column number. As we move over, you'll see that column number being incremented, and as we go down the page, you'll see the line number going up. Also, when you click on a reserved word, you'll see a hint at the bottom of the screen to give you IntelliSense. It will not type on screen for you, but it does give you hints. The next icon is quite useful. If we click on that, we will get up on screen a list of all the functions in the application. In order to see just how useful this is, let's load one of the sample applications. So we've now loaded an application called common32.bas. If we click on the binoculars now, we will see we get a list of the different functions and subroutines that exist in this application, the line number they're on, and also the file name in which they appear. If you have several files all loaded at the same time, this file name is quite useful, as it will tell you which of the files the function or subroutine exists within. If you want to go to that particular function, click on it, double click, and it will jump straight to that specific function. Hitting the F2 button on the keyboard does exactly the same thing. So you can jump around your application quite happily. The next icon on the toolbar was one to connect to the PowerBasic website. This no longer works, as the PowerBasic website has now been taken down. However, feel free to go to the pbusers.org website for the new forum. The next icon is the Help for PowerBasic. This is context aware. Help now. It will take us straight to the local and let us pick the topic. So we'll look at the local statement and we will get specific help for local. You can, of course, type in the word you're looking for in the search box here. For example, string. So the help file you will find particularly useful, as it does provide a great deal of information. So today's video has been a short introduction to the PowerBasic for Windows Integrated Development Environment. In our next video, we will cover the Forms Designer. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching today's video. Please feel free to click on the link in the description below to discover more videos.